The Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs is ringing alarm bells that U.S. tariffs could severely impact the ability to access critical fire and emergency equipment.
Okay, this is definitely a cause for concern for more of this. We're joined live this morning by Oakville's Fire Chief Paul Boissonneault. Chief Boissonneault, appreciate you joining us this morning. So explain to us here the tariff connection to firefighting and firefighting equipment.
Yeah, first and foremost, thanks for having me, Nick and Jennifer. On behalf of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs, first and foremost, we're part of Team Canada, and we recognize that we need to face this issue together. The tariffs and the retaliatory tariffs that are necessary could greatly impact the cost for fire and emergency services across this country. We need strategies to try and mitigate those situations. As well, we're already looking at a looming wildfire season that we're looking down the barrel at upcoming in a very short time period. And therefore, the need for a national fire administration continues to be a necessary advocacy piece for the 3,200 fire departments across this country.
Yeah, I understand that a lot of the fire equipment is purchased in the U.S., so if these tariffs affect the cost of that and supply chain issues, it could really hamper operations. Chief, what do you think needs to be done from the government to kind of mitigate the costs if it is going to be more expensive?
Well, certainly the tariffs were predictable as far as some of the initial information that was being put out. So the fire chiefs proactively engaged with government very, very early. We do commend the government for establishing a remissions process where those groups that could be hit with the greatest challenges, it provides an opportunity to discuss those elements and trying to mitigate those cost increases. As you've indicated, over 90% of the materials, both from personal protective equipment to specialty equipment to cabin chassis and apparatus, do come from the U.S. So it could be significant cost increases. We've already established through data management and through our census that over 60% of fire departments across this country have already deferred to purchases beyond 2 years. And 20% of those fire departments are using outdated equipment by way of industry standards. So there is a huge alarm bell that's being rung at this point. We continue to be a trusted voice for the government, and we'll continue to be a partner as we try and deal with these situations. But the remissions process could be critical in establishing a cost mitigation process so that our fire and emergency equipment is not as greatly affected as it could be.
Yeah, I'm sure, Chief, for someone like you, this is top of mind, but I'm sure for a lot of people watching this morning, when you think about the tariff concerns, this likely wasn't what people had in mind or what we're thinking about. So we appreciate you highlighting this. And it sounds to me like you're also highlighting the issue here that, like many things, you can't just sort of change your production and flip a switch and say, oh, it's going to be suddenly made in Canada. Sounds like there's not that kind of capacity in this country to make what you need here and therefore avoiding tariffs.
That's correct. As I indicated, the cabin chassis from almost all our fire apparatus come from the U.S. Certainly that process would need some time to work through, but also our personal protective equipment in the fire service. You know, some of those critical elements of the Nomex and Kevlar and Gore-Tex, those elements that are made in the U.S. that are part of the processing manufacturing our gear, as well as our self-contained breathing apparatus. Largest manufacturers are in the U.S. So our critical life-saving equipment that protects, firefighters to enable the protection of the communities for which they serve, the tariffs could pose a significant problem for that. And a National Fire Administration would help to discuss these issues in a proactive measure for policy to ensure that we cost mitigate as well as proactively move forward. And again, that wildfire season is looming out west.
Yeah, and it happened in the U.S. in the Pacific Palisades, and Canada sent troops, fire officials there to help with the situation. So this could impact, operations on a global scale if we're ever called to help. Oakville Fire Chief Paul Boissonneault, thanks for joining us and shedding light on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, appreciate it.